Alright, so I posted a couple pics the other day on my Twitter account at Frater Xavier of some orbs floating around my temple after performing a ceremony. Some were quite large, some were quite small. Nevertheless, it was still pretty cool, and it got me thinking about a question that I get every so often, which is what exactly is the temple that I'm speaking of. I always talk about going to my temple, and that throws a lot of listeners off. So let's get into it. The temple is exactly what it sounds like. It's a space where you can perform your daily rituals and exercises without distraction or interruption. Over time, this space becomes sacred. Ideally, this should be a spare room in your home that you can clear out and use as your temple. Now, I know there are some traditions that have outdoor temples, such as a place in the woods or in a cave or even in their own yard. But with ceremonial magic, it's ideally in the home. And the reason for this is there's so many things that you're going to acquire, tools and implements, that it's just not practical keeping them all outdoors. Unless you want to lug all that stuff around every day to and from your outdoor ritual space, it's going to be very difficult to maintain an outdoor temple. And the fact that it's just so much easier to continue with your daily exercises and rituals when all you have to do is go to that spare room in your home. You don't want to give the mind any excuse to not perform the work. And having to go and leave the home to go to your temple is just going to give more ammo to the "I don't feel like it" excuse. Now, everyone's living arrangements are different. You may not have a room to spare, or you may live with people who aren't very open to the idea of you performing ritual magic. And in these cases, yes, you may have to find somewhere else to work. I was fortunate enough to have a spare room in the basement and to live with someone who was understanding enough to be open to what I was doing, although I had to work on that. So for those of you married to someone or in a relationship where the person is opposed to what you're doing, it's all in how you approach it. And I've covered that in previous videos, where if you come to your partner saying things like occult, magic, ritual, and anything else that's been demonized by Hollywood, TV, and religious organizations, you are not going to get very far. You have to approach it a certain way. Meditation, self-hypnosis, experiments with the subconscious, these type of things tend to go over easier and better than occult magic. And if you approach things in this certain way, fairly soon you may have various altars around the house, as I do, for various purposes. Now, for young people living with religious parents or something like that, I would advise not to do magic in the home, as those are the people who simply are not going to understand no matter what you say to them. And it's their roof, their rules, and you don't want to be disrespectful of their wishes. And so the alternative is to either go somewhere else and find somewhere else to do it, or simply wait until you have your own place. The wait doesn't necessarily have to be too long if you go out and cast for your own temple space. And the least conspicuous type of magic there is would be sigil magic. You can get a lot accomplished simply with sigils alone. So just getting a spare room to use for many people is very challenging. In fact, it could be the most challenging thing at the beginning of your magical path. I understand that, and it's something that you're going to have to decide if that's what you really want. And if so, the best advice that I can give you is to either cast for it with candle or sigil magic, making sure to harm none, bind down the action not wanted, because you don't want the magic removing people who are in opposition to you, blocking you from getting it, but instead create the opportunity for you to have your own space for it, and to also visualize the temple as you want it to be, and see yourself inside of it, and visualize it every day. Because if you visualize it long enough, the subconscious will begin to work upon it, especially right when you get up or right before you're ready to go to sleep. Visualize you in your temple, performing magic and feeling good about it. For those of you who do have a spare room that you can use, the first thing you have to do is clear it out and clean it thoroughly. It doesn't necessarily have to be the best room in the house yet, but it does have to be cleared out, vacated, and cleaned. And as I said, my temple is in my basement, which has the added bonus of not having any windows, able to keep out any unwanted light from entering the space, illuminated only by candlelight. Now, if your spare room does have a window, it's not the end of the world. There are ways to work around it. The most important thing is having that room. So we count our blessings. And that's really it. If you're following the self-initiation curriculum in the book Kabbalah Magic and the Great Work of Self-Transformation by Liam Thomas Christopher, it will tell you what things to add to your temple as you progress and when. It took quite a while for my temple to appear as it does in the pics I posted on Twitter. I started with a partially finished room in the basement with my homemade circle and candles on the floor, with a table and a chair, and that was about it. The Nokian elemental tablets that I used were like these little color printed cards in like an 8x10 frame that I hung on the walls. Real small, but they worked absolutely fine. I still have them, but they've since been replaced by much larger handmade banners. As you progress, your temple will progress. And it will progress to the point where if company or people unexpectedly walk into your temple, they probably piss themselves. I had the cable guy out yesterday for internet. I had him run another coaxial line so that I can move my wireless routers. I had that wireless camera in a few videos ago, and that router was put right in front of my face, basically on top of my computer desk, and after a while my eyes started really hurting. Meditated on it, and the answer I was given was move your wireless routers. They're beaming into your eyes. So in order to do that, I had to run another line. And the cable guy was giving me some trouble because my way of doing it would have been too much work for him, or so he made it seem. It really wasn't that bad, but he kept asking, well, what's on the other side of this wall? Can we go in through there? And I kept telling him, you don't want to go in that room. You really don't want to go in that room. That room's off limits. I don't want to lie to the guy, but I don't want to give him too much information either. Sometimes this will pique their curiosity. Well, what the hell's in that room? So you just have to be careful, keep it locked, because when it is your sacred space, you want to keep people out of there. It's not just to keep them from knowing what you're doing, but it's to keep them from touching sacred objects and screwing up the entire energy of your temple. You don't want to be building up and accumulating all this magical energy in your temple and tools just to have someone walk in and put you back at square one. Even my girlfriend isn't allowed in my temple. I've made the mistake of letting her just look in my temple, just peering in from the doorway. And my temple room isn't really that big. It's definitely not as big as I'd like it to be, but I use what I have. And it's too small for me to put in the 2 pillars that I would like to put in there. And so I came up with the solution of getting 2 banners representing the pillars, Jachin and Boaz, to hang in the closet doorways where I keep a lot of my implements and also my wardrobe. And that was my solution to save space. And so she peers in and she sees those banners hanging and she's like, BJ, what do you mean, like blowjob? Needless to say, old Frater got pissed and immediately sent her away. And I had to spend the better part of an afternoon cleansing my temple. It is to be treated as sacred and holy. It has no room for the uninitiated and profane. I did allow my brother in there once when it was undergoing renovations. 1, because he was helping, and 2, because he has a background in magic. He has performed magic, although more of a pagan witchcraft variety. He's the one who I showed how to do sigils, and then the ball came rolling down the street. Well, he won't go in there no more, because after he was in there and he went home, both he and his wife experienced disembodied voices and something jumping up and down on their bed when they were trying to sleep. That's what he told me. I just laughed and said, well, I didn't send anything with you, but, whether or not you brought something home with you, I cannot say. The point is it's just best to keep people out of there. The only real exception I could possibly see to this is if you were initiating someone. But of course you would have had to gone through initiation yourself in order to do so. And that's really all I have to say about the temple. It's really just a place and space where you can do your daily ritual and exercises. And as you progress, your temple will progress along with you. Now, I've sunk thousands into my temple, but that was part of the original deal of doing magic in the first place, was that the magic had to pay for the magic. That if I'm going to do this, it needs to support itself. And it has. And that's where we'll leave it for today. I want to remind everyone that the Fire and Water audio program is now on sale for 25% off the regular price. Simply use the code hexagram when ordering for the 25% off discount. It will be on sale from now through Saturday, so there's still a few days left. And with that, I will see you next time. Take care.